So here we want to divide x cubed plus 3x squared minus 4x plus 8. Right? That's the dividend, and we want to divide this by x minus 2. Now here we want to use synthetic division. Okay, so synthetic division is another way to divide instead of long division. Right? The good thing about synthetic division is we don't have to deal with the x's. Okay, so we just deal with the numbers themselves. Okay. Now, one thing to remember, right? If we're dividing by x minus c, right? So remember, we can only use synthetic division if the divisor is a linear factor, right? So it's x to the first, not x squared or x cubed, with also no coefficient, right? So it has to be just an x by itself minus some value c, right? So in this case, we can conclude that the c here is 2. Okay? Right? It's positive 2, not negative 2. Okay? Also, right, if the remainder is 0, right, this is the key point, right? Why we divide these. Okay? Obviously, we need to know how to divide, but if the remainder is 0, right, then c is what's known as a 0, right? We call it a 0 or a root or a solution, okay? Now, if the remainder is not 0, okay, then we can plug this guy in, and the remainder is actually going to equal what the value once we plug it in, okay? So let's check it out, okay? So let's divide this using synthetic division. So we'll take the 2, not negative 2, right? We're going to take the positive 2. We'll write it this sort of half box here. And we'll just write down the coefficients of the polynomial, right? So the coefficient of x cubed is 1. The coefficient of x squared is positive 3. The coefficient of x is negative 4. And the coefficient, well, this is just the last term, right? So that's just an 8 there. We'll just bring that. Okay. Now, we always bring the first term down, always. Okay. So the first term in this case is a 1, so let's bring that down. Okay. And now we multiply and add, and we just repeat this. Okay, multiply and add, right? Make sure you remember that. Well, what do we multiply together? We multiply the 1 times the 2 here, and then we add this, right? 3 plus 2 is 5, and then just repeat. 5 times 2 is 10, and then we add these together to get 6. 6 times 2 is 12, okay? And notice what happens here. Once we add this, we get 20. Okay? So what does that mean? It means that the remainder is 20, okay? And if we actually did the long division here, right? If we did the long division, then this would be the quotient. This would be the coefficients of the terms in the quotient, right? So this would be what? X squared plus 5x plus 6 plus the remainder divided by the divisor. Okay. Now, one good thing about the remainder, or what the remainder tells us here is, right? So if this was the original polynomial here, right? If this was the original polynomial, let's call it p, right? So if the polynomial was, okay, x cubed plus 3x squared minus 4x plus 8, right? It turns out that p of 2, okay, if you plug in if you plug the 2 in here, right, the answer should be the remainder. What was the remainder that we got in this case? The remainder was 20, right? So actually, if we plug in the 2 into the polynomial, we should get the remainder that we get if we actually do divide them. Okay? Let's try it out. Let's plug in the 2 in here. Okay, so we get, well, what do we get? We get 2 cubed plus 3 times 2 squared minus 4 times 2 plus 8. Okay, well, what is this? 2 to the third power is 8. 2 squared is 4 times 3, which is 12, minus 8 plus 8. Notice what we get in this case. We get 20. Okay? So when we evaluate the polynomial at the root, okay, that is actually the remainder that we get, okay, if we did the long division or synthetic division. Okay? Remember, the key is, what happens if the remainder is 0? If the remainder is 0, then the number that we divide it by, right, that's going to be a root or a solution. Right? In this case, it's not, though.